the United States was born with a contradiction at its heart. In 1776, Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal. Yet the pen that wrote those words belonged to a slave owner. For nearly a century, America tried to ignore this irreconcilable divide. But by 1860, the silence had become deafening. This is the story of the decades before the Civil War, a time when America wasn't yet at war, but the battle lines were being drawn in Congress, in newspapers, and in the hearts of millions. A Cold War fought with words, laws, and compromise until compromise could no longer hold. By 1820, the United States was expanding. New territories were being settled. New states were being admitted to the Union. But each new state raised an urgent question. Would slavery be permitted there or not? The answer seemed simple in theory. Congress would decide. In practice, it was explosive. The southern states, dependent on slavery for their economy and society, feared they would be outnumbered. The northern states, increasingly industrial and increasingly opposed to slavery, wanted to stop it from spreading. Neither side would back down. In 1820, Congress tried to settle the question with the Missouri Compromise. Missouri would enter as a slave state, Maine as a free state. The balance would be maintained, and slavery would be banned north of the 3630 parallel. For 30 years, this uneasy peace held. It was America's first ceasefire in a war that had not yet begun. But it was not a solution. It was a postponement. To understand a conflict, we must first understand the South. The economy of slave states was singular and absolute. Cotton. By 1840, American cotton accounted for nearly 3/4 of the world's supply. Southern planters had become fantastically wealthy, but their wealth required something else: human beings treated as property. Slavery wasn't simply a moral issue in the South, though it was that. It was the foundation of the entire social and economic order. Planters controlled not just plantations, but state legislatures, courthouses, and the direction of national policy. And as Northern opposition to slavery grew, Southerners became increasingly defensive. They began to argue that slavery wasn't merely permissible, it was a positive good, morally justified by Scripture and by the supposed racial inferiority of black people. This wasn't a retreat from slavery, it was a hardening. Meanwhile, the North was transforming. Factories rose where fields had been. Railroads cut across the landscape. Immigrants poured into cities, seeking work and opportunity. This was capitalism of a different kind, not based on a landed aristocracy owning people, but on wage labor, capital investment, and the free market of ideas. And as the North industrialized, it also moralized. Evangelical Christianity, which had once been silent on slavery, began to speak against it. Abolitionism, the radical demand that slavery be abolished immediately and unconditionally, grew from a fringe movement to a powerful force in Northern society. The North began to see itself as the party of progress, freedom, and humanity. The South saw the North as a threat to everything it held sacred. Two Americas had emerged, not just different, but actively hostile to one another's fundamental vision of what America should be. Then came the Mexican-American War. In 1846, the United States defeated Mexico and annexed vast territories, the future states of California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of others. This should have been a moment of national triumph. Instead, it became a nightmare. Suddenly, Congress faced the question it had been avoiding. What would happen in all these new territories? Would slavery expand into them or not? The Wilmot Proviso, proposed in 1846, would have banned slavery in all territories won from Mexico. It passed the House repeatedly, but never the Senate, where Southern senators held power. The South realized something terrifying. If slavery was shut out of the Western territories, it meant slavery would eventually die. As free states outnumbered slave states, the South would lose its grip on Congress, on the presidency, on the future of the nation. For the first time, secession was seriously discussed in Southern legislatures. The Union, they began to suggest, could not hold. In 1850, a dying John C. Calhoun and an aging Henry Clay made one last attempt at compromise. The Compromise of 1850 was a package designed to satisfy both North and South. California would enter as a free state. Utah and New Mexico territories would decide slavery for themselves through popular sovereignty. The slave trade would be banned in Washington, D.C. And the Fugitive Slave Act, a controversial law that required Northerners to capture and return escaped slaves, would be strengthened. For a moment, it seemed the nation had found peace again. Celebrations swept across the country. Bells rang, politicians embraced. But the compromise satisfied almost no one. Northern abolitionists were appalled at the strengthened Fugitive Slave Act. Southern extremists saw only the admission of California as a free state. And most ominously, the compromise created something new: the doctrine of popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty meant that the people of a territory, not Congress, would decide if slavery was permitted. It sounded democratic. It would prove catastrophic. When Kansas Territory opened to settlement under popular sovereignty, it became a battlefield. Pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers poured in, each determined to decide the territory's fate through force. Elections were rigged, settlers were murdered, entire towns were sacked. The violence that Americans had managed to postpone for decades erupted in Kansas, a grim preview of the war to come. And it was in Kansas that John Brown emerged, a zealot with a rifle who believed that slavery could only be defeated by violence. He was right, but he was also a harbinger of the war that would consume the nation. Back in Washington, Congress was fracturing. The Democratic Party split along sectional lines. The Whig Party collapsed. The Republican Party rose, explicitly opposed to slavery's expansion. In 1857, the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision ruled that black people had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, and that Congress could not ban slavery in the territories. The North erupted in outrage. Compromise had become impossible. Northerners and Southerners no longer believed the other side would negotiate in good faith.
They believed the other side was bent on their destruction. In October 1859, John Brown led a raid on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. His plan was to seize weapons and incite a slave uprising. The raid failed. Brown was captured and executed, but his death transformed him. In the North, he became a martyr to freedom. In the South, he became proof of Northern aggression and the determination to destroy the Southern way of life. Bells tolled in Northern cities for John Brown. Southerners saw in his death a warning. The North was coming for them. In November 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. He had never held national office. He was a Republican who opposed slavery's expansion. Most importantly to the South, He was a Northern man, opposed by virtually every slaveholder in the nation. South Carolina seceded from the Union within weeks. Others followed. By the time Lincoln took office in March 1861, 11 states had left the Union and formed the Confederate States of America. The Cold War had ended. The Hot War was about to begin. For 85 years, Americans had tried to avoid the fundamental question that their nation's founding had raised. Can a country truly dedicated to human freedom permit slavery? They had compromised, negotiated, and postponed. But the question could not be postponed forever. The contradictions that had been written into the Constitution in 1787, the belief in freedom for some and chains for others, could finally be resolved only by war. The Cold War of competing ideologies, competing economies, and competing visions of America had grown too hot to contain. The nation would now discover, in blood and fire, what it truly was. Over 600,000 Americans would die in the Civil War. The conflict would last 4 years and transform the nation forever. But its roots ran deep, back through decades of tension, compromise, and the growing certainty on both sides that America could not remain divided. The Civil War did not begin at Fort Sumter in 1861. It began the moment the nation was founded, with a lie it could not sustain.